So do you like the sound of your voice or
No? I don't think anyone likes the sound of their voice.
I'm not sure. I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's just maybe it's just self-consciousness.
Right.
Or I don't know. I mean, if you're a singer, you must like the sound of your voice.
Yes.
It's your instrument.
Yeah.
But I don't know. As an actor, because I was an actor in my previous life.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I did not like the sound of my voice. And a lot of it was because of all the vocal training I had to go through to make my voice sound a certain way. And you pick apart the aspects of your voice that are unpleasant.
Gotcha.
So over time, I've learned to not like the sound of my voice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our favorite part of the week. It's time to listen to Sounds of Health, where we share the stories, people, and resources that help others to improve their physical, emotional, and financial well-being. Whether you consider yourself a health enthusiast, a wellness warrior, or if you're simply looking for information, guidance, or inspiration, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Dave McNiven, and today I'm excited to welcome Kathy Moniello, the president and founder of Forevermore Homes. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you so much, David. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, too. So I want to talk to you more about what your business is. So you help seniors with aging in place. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my favorite topic. So
That's great. So now you're a broker and realtor.
yes. So Forevermore Homes is it's an aging in place consulting company. So we help people either decide to stay in their current home and make changes that they need for safety and accessibility, or we help them move somewhere more appropriate. So we do have a team of realtors. It's the Forevermore Homes team of Coldwell Banker.
Okay.
And so that's the real estate piece when someone desires to move. And then we have a network of home contractors and suppliers of accessibility equipment and such, so that if they do decide to stay, we tap into our network and help them do whatever needs to be done in the home.
That's
so
really
that
great.
in a nutshell is what we do.
Okay. So it is similar to a few of the other guests that we've had on the podcast, but also very unique, because I don't think there was an aspect of realty with some of those other companies.
Right.
It seems like everybody's on the same team and involved in the same mission, but yours seems to be really focused on either improving the home so that people can stay there and safely age in place.
Right.
Or to find something else.
That's
correct?
exactly right. And so I know some of your prior guests, and you're right. We all are in the same kind of circle, that we're all very passionate about serving the senior population, and we each do something a little bit different. So if for example, if I have a homeowner that desires to move to an assisted living community, I would call on one of your prior guests, Cynthia Montano and Linda Craig from Always Best, and ask them to participate in helping that senior explore communities and choose one that's right for them. I don't do that piece, but I have in my network people that do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, similar to what I do with the health insurance piece is I try to create relationships with people like yourself, like Cynthia and Linda, so that they have the resources for the people that I'm out there serving every day.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole goal, is to just develop this rich network that you can tap into for whatever situation you may come across and whatever the need might be. So yeah, that's the part I find most fulfilling, and it's really my passion.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, did you get into realty first and then this developed, or how did it work?
There's a little story behind
Okay,
that.
perfect. We love stories.
I think like many people that are in this space of serving seniors, we got into it for a very personal reason. Mm-hmm. My background is actually in insurance.
Oh, great.
I when I got out of college back in the mid-'80s, I really didn't have a focus on what I wanted to do, so I fell into insurance like many people did, and back in the
I'm
day.
one of those. Yeah.
And so I ended up working for an insurance agency down here on the shoreline, and that agency also did workers' comp, and they did workers' compensation for municipalities and hospitals and healthcare. And one of the biggest things that we tried to help our clients with was fall prevention, because that's, as you know, being in insurance, that's one of the leading causes of injury.
Of course.
So that risk management background, I'll fast forward because that plays a little part in how I got here.
Sure.
I ended up leaving the insurance industry and forming a business that did sales, consultation, and training. And I did that for a while, but for many reasons, I put that on the back burner. I got to a place in my life where my husband, sadly, he passed away in 2017 from cancer. But that's part of my story, we'll go there. It was during the time I was selling the home after he passed that my realtor said to me, well, what are you going to do now in your next chapter? And I said, I'm really not sure. I need to think about that. He said, why don't you get your real estate license? And he planted a seed, and it germinated. And sure enough, a couple of months later, I did. Right around the time my mom was going through a transition. So she was living in a single-family home, and it was lovely. It was all one level, and it was small enough to maintain, but she got to the point where she just did not want the responsibility of that. And
understandable.
One of the things I remember her talking about a lot was she was very fearful of power outages and then her sump pump not kicking on. But as you get older, you don't want to deal with those types of issues, and it becomes stressful. It's just,
they can. Yeah.
So she says, well, I want to move. So it really, going through that process with her, it was not just about where she was going to move and how we were going to get her there, but it was really looking at all aspects of her life. From, was she updated with her wills and her estate plans? Was she, what did her financial plan look like? If she was going to move, how would she finance that move?
Right.
And so I got to look at more of the big picture. And of course, because she's my mom, I knew aspects of her personal life and her health and the whole picture. So I realized that if my mom needed that kind of support, she's a bright, with it, young 82-year-old. She's a nurse. She raised 6 kids. She's a very
That's amazing.
Smart, sharp lady. But if she needed help with this transition, I believe that there were many others out there that did. And I started to become interested not just in senior real estate. There's a designation for that called SRES. It's a seniors real estate specialist. I got that designation, but then I wanted to take a step further, and I got involved in this thing called aging in place. And I went and got another designation called CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. And that's kind of how the business came about, with the real estate piece, the aging in place consulting piece, and my prior risk management background with the whole lens of safety and fall prevention.
Right.
Everyone I talk to has a story. They know someone elderly that has fallen. Yeah. And when a senior falls, it can be devastating. I mean, really, it can be truly devastating. Yeah. They never regain their mobility, the same mobility as before. And the prognosis is just not, especially after a break of the hip.
Right. Yeah. Tough to recover from.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we work with a client, we go in the house and take a look and say, okay, what's working here and what's not? The key things we look for, number one, is one level living. Stairs are just not your friend as you get older. For anybody, really. Anybody can take a tumble.
Yeah, we take it for granted because many of us have lived in multi-level homes all our lives. But you have to be aware going up and down stairs.
Right, for sure. And I think of a senior going down to a basement with a basket of laundry, for example. Yeah. That's just not good. So we want to try to bring everything to one level for them, if possible. And even if there are no bedrooms on the main level, oftentimes there's some unused space, like a living room that is not really utilized. And so we borrow that space and create a bedroom and a bathroom suite for them.
That's great.
The last resort would be a stair lift going up the stairs. I think that they work well for many people, but I do worry about people that struggle with balance issues, that getting on and off. Yeah, right.
That can be challenging.
Yeah, exactly. So one level living is number one. Number two is how do they get in and out of the house? And I'm a big proponent of worst case scenario planning. And what I mean by that is think of a time when you might be in a wheelchair, because we never know.
Right.
But if you prepare for that, then you're ready. And if you don't need it, then you're fine. But you're not dealing with those things at a time where it becomes urgent.
So meaning layout and space of the home to accommodate if that were to happen?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
So that means we need to be able to get in the home.
Yeah.
And if the home has a low threshold entry, it's very easy usually to accommodate a ramp.
Right.
So we're looking for a covered entryway that could accommodate a ramp, given that you need a foot of ramp for every inch of rise. So ideally, a garage, a 2-car garage, where one of the garage bays could be taken up by a ramp.
Okay.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
We're always trying to find the ideal, but we have constraints of the physical characteristics of the house and of the financial situation.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, what is the utopia, and then how close to it can we get? So that's number two. Number three is in the bathroom. I'm a big proponent of a curbless shower. So no threshold whatsoever.
Yeah.
So can we accomplish that? Wide hallways and doorways. And then last but not least is, do we have space for a caregiver? So most of us at some point in our life, we will have some difficulty doing things we all take for granted right now.
Right.
Cooking, cleaning, bathing, taking medications. And so we want to have space that if we ever do need a caregiver full-time, 24/7, they have somewhere to sleep.
Yeah.
In the state of Connecticut, there is a requirement. You don't have to pay a caregiver for sleeping time as long as they can get 5 hours of interrupted sleep and they have a private sleeping space.
Gotcha. Okay,
so now
that makes
if
sense.
you can create a house that has all those things and you can afford it and maintain it, you're good to go.
Right.
So that's what we're looking for is, can we accomplish that or close to it in that space in a way that makes financial sense?
Yeah.
In other words, we never want to plan something where people are going to outlive their money.
Right.
Or do we need to look at other options? I think about your introduction, and you said financial, emotional, and physical.
Yeah.
And those are the three things that we need to look at.
Right.
In fact, I have a monthly program I do at a local senior center. I call it Aging Gracefully, Smart Choices for Physical, Financial, and Emotional Well-Being.
That's great.
Because it's like think about it. It's a 3-prong stool, if you will. And if one of those things falls apart, you're going to fall on your butt.
Right. Yeah.
So I like those 3 words that you use, and it's a coincidence. Well, it's not really a coincidence.
Yeah.
We share those 3 words.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we have some similar experiences being out there in the community, seeing the needs that exist.
Right.
For me, working with seniors and working with those clients, there are people I meet every day who are really well off and they've got it all under control.
Yeah.
They have the means and they have thankfully the physical health and emotional health. But there are many people out there that are either missing one of those components or, possibly didn't save properly or maybe just reached certain challenges in their life that wipe them out financially.
Right.
And it does create such a burden on the entire family.
Yeah.
And so, the more that we can do to help people to increase those types of things, to increase their health in all of those areas,
Right.
then the stronger we are as a community.
Right. And I encourage people to think about this. You're young. You're younger than
Somewhat.
I am. But I encourage people to plan for this in advance. Yeah. And the more you can educate yourself on, how to go about this idea of planning to age in place, the more you can inform and educate yourself, the more choices and options you have.
Right,
and you can make a more informed decision at a time when you're still physically and, emotionally and cognitively healthy.
Yeah.
Versus waiting to a point where you may not be able to make those decisions for yourself, and then someone makes them for you, and it may not be what you want.
Or you're in the midst of crisis,
Correct.
And it's difficult to make those decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take for any one of us, moving is super stressful.
Yeah, for sure. For all of us.
But take that and now be an 80-something with health issues, maybe some cognitive issues, maybe some physical issues, maybe both. And the stress level just is exponential.
Yeah, it's compounded.
I realize this is an audio, so people can't see my hand my hand gestures here, but it's just so important to plan. So that's, I could tell you a couple stories about people we're dealing with. One lady, we got referred in to meet with her, and she lost her partner a couple years back, and so she's living alone. She has macular degeneration, and it's progressing, and she realized that she needs some help. So we went into the home, and the first thing we asked her to do was a home inspection. And the reason for that is when we were going through the home, we noticed some water in the basement. And sure enough, there was a little bit of a mold condition that we needed to deal with. But being that she never really was the one responsible for caring for our home, we wanted to get a baseline and make sure that the home was properly maintained. And that things that she could and should be doing as regular maintenance, she was aware of that. So in the home inspection, we found a couple of issues that we put on our little list of things that we might need to address. Then we did the accessibility assessment, and her washer and dryer, it's a one-level ranch, but her laundry was in the basement.
Oh, okay.
And the basement stairs were extremely steep. I mean, they were just so not to code. And we were very fearful of her going up and down those stairs. So we needed to find a way to bring the laundry up. And we did. We found an unused bedroom that was adjacent to a bathroom where there was plumbing right where we needed it to be.
That's great, yeah.
So that was probably the biggest accessibility thing, aside from she had a lot of stuff. A lot of pieces of small furniture that could become tripping hazards that we have asked her to think about, downsizing a little bit in terms of her stuff.
Yeah.
In the safety assessment, it's very much a room by room review, mostly about fall prevention. So you go in and say, okay, is the lighting adequate? Is the switch right at the beginning, the entry, so you're not walking across a dark
to get
room
the light on,
to get the switch or turn a lamp on?
Right.
What's the flooring like? Is it in good condition? Are there any tripping hazards? Is it cluttered? So for every area, there's very consistent questions that are always asked because they're common everywhere. And then areas like a bathroom or a kitchen, there's other things we look at too. So out of that, we recognized a need for more lighting and relocation of switches. Other little things really minor things like replacing an entry mat that was too thick and could be a tripping hazard with something flat. So not only do we give the recommendations, but we also go out to the contractors. So I printed the report, I gave it to the electrician and said, come back with a proposal for doing X number of recessed lights, for example. So it's one thing to give a homeowner a recommendation, but then they're like, okay, well, now what do I do and who do I call?
Right.
You really need to bring it over the finish line.
You need to line it up.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the execution that matters.
Right.
Yeah. So let me talk to you a little bit about how it all works.
Sure.
So your team, how big is your team?
My team is small but growing.
Okay.
So I just recruited an agent I'm very excited about. Her name is Pamela Kirkby, Pam. And she worked for William Ravis, and it was a top producing agent on the Shoreline. And we met at one of these senior networks, like one I just came from this morning, where it's people that are all in the same space of serving seniors. Yep. So she was already dedicated to serving seniors, and she had her specialist designation. And then when she learned about this other element of aging in place, she approached me and was very excited to add that part of it to her toolkit. Mm-hmm. And so she's recently joined me. So my team of agents right now is 3.
Okay.
But that my plans for 2024 are to grow that team in a manageable way. But I'm thinking 8 people in the span of this year.
Okay.
Throughout the state. Okay. And I believe that I offer good agents that are really committed they have to be committed to serving seniors.
Right.
And they have to be like really service mindset oriented. But I think I offer a value proposition on my team because of that aging in place piece. Mm-hmm. It just offers them another element of service, of fee-based service. It's not commission generated.
Yeah.
Which is important now more than ever because commissions in real estate are being...
changing.
I've seen the news. You've seen the news, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of changes in our industry as well coming down.
Sure.
Yeah. So your team of 3 are realtors. They're realtor agents.
They're realtors and they have certified aging in place
and they're certified
designation.
Okay. So when people are coming to you, are you specifically looking at seniors or do you do kind of everybody when it comes to home sales?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because the issues that we deal with they're very important to seniors, but I think they apply across all generations.
Right.
So people my age, which I won't say how old I am, but our kids are grown and we're looking to downsize.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure our next home is our forever home. We don't have to leave.
Right.
So that's an important population is people that are looking to downsize and really want their next home to be it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of younger people too are looking to buy a home and renovate the home and stay in it forever. I think, back when we were starting out and buying homes, it was like the McMansion kind of mentality.
Sure, yeah.
The younger people aren't choosing that now. So, we deal with people that we've helped kids move as they're expecting another child into a bigger home, and then the parents decide they want to move near the kids, and we help the parents find a home that is appropriate for them to age in place in. So it really goes across all generations.
Okay, so you're serving a broad category of people,
yes.
But you have these certifications that allow you to specifically work with seniors and what their needs are.
Correct.
And to view the home sale process through that lens for future planning.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So that lens is critical for seniors, but it also is very helpful for other age groups that,
absolutely,
like I described, the empty nesters.
Right. Yeah. So when you go in to have a consultation with somebody, is it that they're saying, I want to sell my home, but you're going in to evaluate?
Sometimes they know their direction and they know for example, they might know they want to sell and go into a senior community. Mm-hmm. We find that a lot. It's a common misperception that seniors want to stay in their current home.
Yeah.
There were some surveys done by ARP that kind of lean that way, that say seniors prefer to stay in their own home.
Yeah.
But there are many more seniors that are really desiring a different kind of retirement and more of an active community-based retirement. So, so sometimes they know I definitely want to go. Sometimes they say, I definitely want to stay.
Okay.
But we still need to evaluate that for them. And we need to evaluate, if they stay, what do they need to do? How much is it going to cost? Can we afford it? If they want to go to a senior community, again, is that something that's viable for them so that they don't outlive their money?
Yeah.
And I forgot to say this, but this is very important, is after we've done this assessment, we send them armed with all of the findings to their financial and legal advisors.
Great.
So they're trusted professionals to say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Here are the economics of it. Mm-hmm. Is this a good option for me?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a holistic approach so that they can really incorporate it into their total financial plan.
Correct.
That's great.
Correct.
That's great.
It's funny because I see many seniors that when they look at their financial plan, their biggest concern is, I want to leave X, Y, Z to my children.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I'm like, let's just worry about you guys now and your quality of life. Your kids are fine. Your kids are fine. But I get that. So we have to work up a plan that fits within their financial objectives and what they're trying to achieve in their retirement and then their planning.
I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine about that desire of people to leave a legacy, to leave money to their children.
Yeah.
And his point of view was, why? If you do that, like, they're not working for it, and they should be working for it. And, there's this whole concept of, establishing generational wealth so that your family is in a good position, right?
Sure.
Which I think I subscribe to, and I hope to have at some point. But it is interesting because the more financially healthy that we are when we're older, then we're setting up our family, even if we don't have the money to leave behind, even if we've gone through it, in order to maintain a high quality of life. That's more beneficial to our family than any dollars we're going to leave them afterwards.
Right, because then we're not a burden to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're going to be leaving behind experiences that they're going to remember in a positive way for the rest of their lives.
I couldn't agree more. I think in our generation, we felt it was important to put our kids through school. And so, we've done that. We've made our investment. And the kids, for the most, unless you have a child that has a disability or some issues that they're not independent, that's a completely different story.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So my advice to seniors is to, you've worked for this. It's your time.
Yeah. Yeah. Develop the life you want to lead for the time you have left and enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. I mean, I think it's such a unique perspective for realtors to have. I've been hearing more and more about these designations recently. It seems like there's more people that are getting involved in that space. What is that like to get certified in those areas?
I'm going to have to try to remember. The Certified Aging in Place Specialist designation is a designation that's offered by the National Association of Home Builders.
Oh, okay.
And when I took this, it was pre-COVID, and it was a 3-day course. Now they offer it virtually. So it is 3, maybe not 8-hour days, maybe it was 6 hours.
Okay, yeah.
And then some testing along the way during that period. But it was wonderful. I remember my instructor, like it was yesterday, it came away with so much valuable information from that. And then the Senior Real Estate Specialist, it's similar. Well, that's offered by the National Association of Realtors. And that, I'm sorry, I can't remember how many hours that was, but they have a prescribed curriculum, and there's a certain number of class hours that you have to sit through and some testing at the end.
Gotcha. And it really does help you to apply a certain lens to how you're...
Without question.
Okay.
Without question. So I remember taking the test or the course to become a real estate agent. And I remember sitting there like rolling my eyes. I'm never, ever going to use this information. Things like meets and bounds and determining land lines. And okay, I'm never going to use that.
Right.
And that's just a silly example. But they really didn't teach you how to become a good real estate agent. They taught you how to pass the state test.
Of course, yeah.
These other designations, totally different. Okay. It's really very practical information that arm you with tools to better serve your clients, for sure.
That's great.
Yeah, I would totally recommend them.
Okay, awesome. And then do you have like a list of preferred vendors that you work with on the home improvement side? Because your team doesn't do that side of it, right?
No, my company does have a home improvement contractor license.
Okay.
But we get involved in that piece just purely consultative. So if a client needs to do some renovations, we will develop the scope of work, really detail it out so it's clear what the contractor is quoting on. We'll go out and identify the right contractors to quote, and through our network of people that we've known, we know the quality of the work, we know their license, they're insured, and they're going to show up and do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
So we develop the scope of work, we go out and get the pricing, we help the client get under contract and make sure that the contract's solid, protecting them as well as the contractor. Sometimes they're a little bit too one-sided. And then we stay involved for problem resolution, because there's always some little hiccups, always.
Yeah.
And it just becomes the ability to, figure out how you're going to get beyond it and what needs to be done to push through it. We will get involved in helping pick out materials if the customer would like that, tile and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. And now, is that an all-inclusive service of working with your agency, or are there things that people are...
That's a fee-based service.
Fee-based.
So depending on the scope of the project is what we would charge based on the scope.
Right.
The real estate side, right now, but as we mentioned, things are changing in the real estate industry. Mm-hmm. Right now, it is a commission-based, based on the sale of a house or the purchase of another house.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're navigating what those changes are going to be, just like everyone else out there.
Right, right. And it looks like right now, real estate agents provide a very important function.
Yeah.
When you think about buying a house, I don't think most people realize what goes into that and kind of what risks we're mitigating every day as we take a client through that process.
Yeah.
And if you don't have someone guiding you through the landmine, you could really make some financial mistakes.
Yeah.
And so good real estate agents are worth what they charge to do the job that they do. So even as the industry is going to be changing and how we're compensated, good agents will still be compensated for the value they provide.
Of course.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with that with the Medicare landscape as well. There's a lot of rules and regulations that are coming our way that are changing the way we're compensated. And I think part of it is that people don't realize what our role is.
Right.
And the value that we provide, because it's true that people can go directly to an insurance company and get the coverage that they need,
right?
But they're not going to have the support that an agent provides. Yeah. And like you said, there are landmines out there. There are financial mistakes and missteps that you can make,
correct,
that you just wouldn't know about if you didn't have an advisor you can trust.
Correct.
Yeah,
I agree. And so, I mean, in a home buying or selling process, there's inspections and appraisals and some parties to the transaction that get a little cuckoo.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And need to use a technical term, but, you're dealing with other human beings and there's a lot of stress involved. And sometimes it just takes some extra communication and diplomacy to try to rein everybody back in and get everybody working toward a common goal of a successful closing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's an art.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it sounds like you're providing such a great resource and a great assisting device for people that are out there that are going through these challenges. Are there any of the events that you have lined up coming up? You mentioned you speak at some of the senior centers.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. So every month I do a program at the Guilford Senior Center.
Okay.
And every month it's a different topic, something educational that's important to seniors. And so next month, one of the seniors came up to me a couple of months ago and said, I think we really need to understand the different types of housing options that are available to us, from senior housing to what's assisted living and how is that different from independent living. And so this was requested by the group. So on May 15th, we have a lunch and learn that is going to deliver some really great content around that. I have a panel of experts, of senior advisors, that this is all they do. They help people evaluate the different housing options. So the panel's going to provide some education and definitions around some of these housing types, and then open it up to questions.
That's great.
Yeah, we serve a nice lunch too.
And is that open to the public, or is it to senior center members? Or
it's open to the public. Okay. It's we like to ask that it's seniors that live on the shoreline.
Of course, yeah.
Not somebody trying to come and sell something to seniors there.
Right.
I really want it because we fill the house every month.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And at first when I was doing this, I'm like, you know what? I wonder if they're just coming for the lunch.
Well, it helps. It definitely helps.
Yeah, it helps. But what I found is that they truly value the education. And a quick story, we did a program on fall prevention. And I had an occupational therapist from Quinnipiac University. She's a professor, Michelle Tarantino. She came in and did a wonderful,
that's great,
wonderful presentation. The next month, I'm there getting ready for my program, and this woman comes in, an older woman, and she hands me a card. And I was busy trying to get everything set up, so I really didn't think anything of it until the program was underway, and I open it. It's a thank you card, and it wasn't just from her. It was from her adult children.
Oh, wow.
So she went home and she called her adult children. She said, hey, I went to this program and I need you guys to come over so you can help me fall-proof my house. And I have the card. Awesome. The card's right on my desk.
Yeah.
But I get such positive and really, sincere feedback that you can tell that they're really taking what they're learning and they're using it.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. You're making a difference.
Listen, if I can help just one person avoid a pitfall or enrich their life in some way, then I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's obvious to me that you're passionate about the work you're doing.
I am.
And that you love what you do, which is half the battle for sure.
Correct.
But being able to be of service to people too, I think that's just so important.
Great.
So, that's great.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you have coming up that you'd like to promote, or can you tell us how people should find you?
So I do have a website. It does need a little bit of updating, but there's some good information out there. It's www.forevermorehomes.com. And my best way to reach me is cell phone. It's 203-710-6317.
Okay.
And I do want to say that the initial visit to a home is complimentary.
Oh, great.
So that very high-level accessibility assessment, there is no charge for that.
And you work all throughout Connecticut?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Not yet. I'm glad you clarified that as well. So there's certainly demand throughout the state for what we do, but
sure.
I want to grow in a manageable way so that we can deliver on what we promise.
Of course,
and so right now, the shoreline.
Yeah.
And so I define that as really, New Haven County, a little bit over toward West Haven and Orange and Milford, all the way down to Old Saybrook and inland a little bit, maybe up towards Wallingford-ish, Meriden and over. So sort of that rectangle on the 95 corridor.
Right. Gotcha.
We have good capacity there.
And you mentioned that you have a goal to grow manageably your team.
Yes.
You want to get to about 8 people.
Yes.
Who are you looking for with that? Who are some people that actually you think would be ideal candidates?
Okay. There is one person in particular that I am working with that I feel she will be my next addition to the team. And I found her because she has her CAPS designation. And I reached out to people in the state that have it just to network with them.
Right.
And then she tells me, oh, by the way, I have my real estate license. She's very active in the building community. She works for a building supply company. And so it's important for us to work with builders to say, hey, if you're renovating a bathroom, please do a curbless shower.
Yeah.
Or at least talk to your client about it. Yes, there's an incremental cost, yes, but at least talk to them about it and give them an option. But people, getting back to your question, anyone who is passionate about serving seniors, they don't even necessarily have to have their real estate license yet, but they have to have a desire to do that. I mean, that's really it. I'm just a good, service-oriented, collaborative, somewhat tech-savvy, because there's a lot of technology that we use in our business with the multiple listing system, and,
I'm sure,
and an app that we use to do our assessments. So to have some comfort level around that, but not necessarily have their real estate license or their CAPS. We can help them with that.
Okay, so just an interest in serving the senior population.
Yeah.
And in doing this type of work.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct.
Now, going back to kind of your personal journey,
yes,
are there things in your life that you have been successful in helping to maintain or increase your healthy habits or things like that?
Oh, my goodness. Well, couple of things. So when I sold my home, I bought a very rundown, one-level ranch. And it was at the time that I was getting interested in the topic of aging in place. So when I renovated it, I did it with an eye toward never having to leave.
Yeah.
So I have my curbless shower. I have my wide doorways and hallways. I have my covered garage that can accommodate a ramp. I built a little apartment over the garage for my caregiver. So I really have used the process of renovating my own home to show what a model could really look like for many people. So I feel like I have, in my personal life, I have that part of it. I met your colleague Jason at Orange Theory Fitness, so I want to give a shout out to Orange Theory Fitness. I do try to get in my exercise as much as I can every week. Eating habits, well, let's not go there.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's leave it at that.
Well, it sounds like you're doing well with everything else.
Yeah, I feel like it. I feel like I'm practicing what I preach.
Yeah. How great it is to walk the walk and be able to really
demonstrate
about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
This was a pleasure.
I
can talk about it forever.
Yeah, and it's great. It's such an overlap of what we do too in the community. So I'm sure there's going to be ways for us to work together in the future.
Of course.
And I want to thank you for serving our senior population, for helping people to do these things. And
it's a privilege.
Yeah. It sure is. We feel the same way.
I think they need and they deserve a higher level of care. That's my core belief.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for being here today. And I'm sure we'll point our listeners in your direction. And hopefully, maybe we'll have you back on the show at some point.
Absolutely love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. The podcast is produced by Jason Carubia and Dave McNiven with music by Rob Hames. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate it when you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you know someone who you think should be a guest on the show, please email us at soundsofhealthpodcast@gmail.com. Each week, we spotlight the stories, people, and resources that inspire and motivate others to improve their health, and we are just getting started. Help us to share these sounds, and don't keep us a secret.